Welcome to Behind the Jewellery podcast, sharing positive stories from behind the jewellery industry and the people who shape it. In association with Chalmers Gems. Welcome, Marie, to Behind the Jewellery. This is our podcast series about careers behind the jewellery. So I invited you here today to talk about your career behind the jewellery and how you've got to where you are. And the reason that we're running this series is to highlight the variety of careers within our industry, which I'm sure you'd agree is vast, isn't it? Everything
Absolutely.
from finance, admin, right through to actually making jewellery.
Yeah.
And also to look at the variety of educational backgrounds and how people have got to where they are. So if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to know everything there is to know about you and your career.
Okay, Marie, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and chat to you. So I'm going to go back 40 years. Okay, so it'll be 40 years this September since I stepped foot into the jewellery industry.
Wow.
It was in 1986. I'm sure I've done the maths correct.
Yeah, that is 40
It feels like
years.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. So I had no intention necessarily of entering the jewellery industry. So I left school when I was 16 with reasonable grades in my what were CSEs,
Right,
now
okay.
known as GCSEs, decent grades. I'd been brought up one of 6 children,
Blimey.
big Irish Catholic
Yeah.
family, and really my intention at leaving school was to get out and work.
Right,
There was never a plan really to continue my education.
right.
So off I went into the big bad world and I joined a youth training scheme.
Oh, so YTS back in the day.
YTS scheme, exactly. I think I was earning £25 a week.
Yeah, my husband did
I think it was.
YTS and it was something like £19 a week.
Yeah.
A youth training scheme in what? What was
Right,
the
so
topic?
it was admin,
Okay.
secretarial duties. So it was great because although I've just said I didn't go on to further education, a youth training scheme was a training scheme.
Like an apprenticeship, similar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're working, but you're learning and
earning.
you're earning, which is important. So I was placed into a business that was about half a mile from where I lived. And it was a chain of newsagents called Dillon's.
Right.
I don't know whether anybody remembers them. Their head office happened to be just literally up the road from where I lived. So off I went and I began my youth training scheme there at Dillon's newsagents in the head office, just doing admin.
Right. Okay.
Typing, all sorts of duties that you would expect in an office environment. I think my very first job was to do a whole load of shredding in the shredding room.
Wow.
It was fun. I then progressed from there to a car hire company in West Bromwich, and I landed myself a job as secretary to the operations director.
Right.
So I was quite pleased with myself.
And
Because
this is you're quite young, 18.
Yeah. So I'd done my YTS, completed that, and then by about 18, I moved on. So I worked with a guy called Dave. He was a very energetic operations director. I always had to run to keep up with him.
Right.
And life was fine. We had some really nice offices based by the West Bromwich Albion football grounds.
Right.
And I was quite happy in that role. I then got a telephone call one day from a recruitment agency in Birmingham asking me if I was interested in taking a role in the jewellery industry. And I thought to myself, I'm quite happy where I am, but jewellery seemed a little bit more appealing than cars
Wow.
to me.
Oh, that is more appealing in my opinion.
Definitely. So I went off for the interview, which was with the British Jewellers Association in a building in Frederick Street at number 27. And I met a lovely lady called Lynn Sneed. Some of our listeners might remember Lynn. She's retired now. I went into the building at 27 Frederick Street, bearing in mind that I was in quite nice plush offices with the car rental company. And I walked into this Victorian building and I thought, wow, how interesting. Lynn absolutely sold the jewellery industry to me.
Right.
And although I wasn't looking to move, I actually decided that it was the right thing to do. So I was offered the job,
Mm.
and I talked to my parents and I said, right, Mum, Dad, what do you think? I'm quite settled and happy working with Dave in car rental. Um, what do I do? And my own instinct was to go with my gut, which was to make the move.
So how old were you at this point?
So I was 19 at this point.
So
Yeah.
still so young. And was it a pay rise?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
a nice pay rise. So Mum and Dad said, go for it, Marie.
Yeah.
Just make sure you work hard. You know, and hopefully you'll succeed. So I made the plunge and I started working with Lynn on the 15th of September, 1986.
Oh, you've got a good memory.
Some dates do stick with me. And yeah, that was the beginning of my introduction to the jewellery industry. Now, it was pretty much a baptism with fire because the following year in 1987, the British Jewellers Association was going to celebrate its 100th anniversary. So big centenary year with lots of events planned. And this was one of the appeals, to be honest, of the job.
And what was the actual job? What was the job?
So the role was admin support to the association secretary.
Right. Okay.
So again, it was just utilising my skills in admin. So that was what the role was about. There were lots of events to be planned during the centenary year, and we kick-started 1987 off with some great celebrations, the biggest of which was a huge banquet for the jewellery industry at the council house in Birmingham in June of 1987. So just nearly coming up for 12 months in the job.
Right.
And it was the highlight of my career, taking part and being instrumental in organising that enormous event for the British Jewellers Association during such an important year. So it was fun, lots of hard work, particularly during that first 12 months. Lots of admin. Back then, you know, technology wasn't what it is today.
Yes.
So we were still operating with things like telexes.
Right. I don't know what that is.
No, sorry. Okay, telex machines.
Not a fax machine.
No,
before a fax machine.
Before a fax machine. Okay. So means of communicating with people via telex. It was, it's quite eye-opening now when we look at technology that we're working with today. So I worked hard with Lynn. We soon moved from the 27 Frederick Street building across to 10 Vise Street, which is where the British Jewellers Association, now known as the National Association of Jewellers, is based.
And so the two companies eventually merged, didn't they?
They did, the two associations merged much later on down the road. But after spending probably about 5 or 6 years working with the British Jewellers Association, because it was part of a wider federation, there was an opportunity to move within that organisation.
Right.
And I joined the Giftware Association, which was a sister trade association to the BJA, and I took on the role of managing that trade association.
Right.
So that was my first promotion within the jewellery industry. I then moved on to I did that job probably for about 2 to 3 years. I then moved on to take on a role within the Central Federation, working for the chief executive of what was then known as the British Jewellery and Giftware Federation. So I found myself moving around within the same business. And then eventually I took on the role as being general manager of the British Jewellery and Giftware Federation. That was over a 17-year period.
Blimey, I mean, that's quite a commitment.
Yeah, so 1986 was when I began. And then in 2003, after 17 years with that business, I thought to myself, you know, there might be a life outside the jewellery industry, and I thought it was time to have a look at what else might appeal to me. I wasn't necessarily head set on leaving the jewellery industry, but I wanted a change. What I've missed out in this period of time is that during my growing up within the British Jewellery and Giftware Federation, I met the man who I subsequently married, my dear husband Bill, and I had my first child, my beautiful daughter Ellie. So by 2003, when I was starting to think about what is my next career move? My little girl was 8 at the time. And I thought to myself, what I would love to have is a short sabbatical, to spend some time in the summer with my daughter, and then think about what the future might hold. So I took the difficult decision to hand my notice in with the British Jewellery and Giftware Federation. And my last gig, as it were, with the Federation was to organise the annual general meeting, which was held at the House of Lords.
Wow.
So that was a pretty
impressive
gig. Yeah. I've got some pictures, I think, back then of me with a glass in my hand.
What a surprise.
Thank you, Marie. Overlooking the Thames at the final event that I attended.
Wow.
And I didn't actually know what I was going to do next, but I knew I needed a little bit of a break and perhaps a different direction. At that event, a gentleman called Michael Ulchin, who was the assay master at Birmingham Assay Office at that time, came over to me as we were packing up and leaving the event at the end of the day. And he said to me, "Pop in and see me. Let's have a coffee together." And I said, "No problem, Michael. During my 3-month sabbatical, I'll definitely do that." And I followed back up with Michael and said, "That coffee, we're going to have a coffee together." And he said, "Yep, come on down." And I went and had a coffee on a very nice summer's day at the Assay Office. And Michael said to me, "Would you like to come and join Birmingham Assay Office?" And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I was looking at the world outside jewellery, but hey ho, let's have a chat." I said to him, "What sort of role are you looking at that you might think I might be useful for?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, you've done 17 years in the jewellery industry. It would be a great shame to lose that contact and that connect.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll create a role for you. And I said, "Oh, okay." So he said to me, "Actually, you think about the role that you think you might be good at." So he almost gave me a blank sheet of paper to go away and think about what I could do and what skills I could bring to Birmingham Assay Office.
Wow.
So I went away. It wasn't a brilliant opportunity. It really was. So I started with that blank sheet of paper, and I thought the one thing that I've built up over the last 17 years is relationships and contacts within the jewellery industry. And we all know that that is what this industry is built on.
Yeah, network. I mean, you are a super networker. I think it is a massive skill of yours. You know just about everybody.
Oh, do you have?
Yeah, and networks. Yeah, and relationship building is phenomenal. And I think it is a big skill of yours.
Right. Well, I didn't appreciate that was a skill.
Okay.
But I because you just do it.
Yeah, because naturally your personality as well.
I think it naturally came to me. And, 17 years of attending conferences, trade shows, events. And we all know there's lots of social events that happen within this industry. I built up those relationships. And at the time, Birmingham Assay Office didn't really have an account manager that was proactively looking after their key accounts.
Right.
So the role we developed was business relations and key account management.
Right.
And the wonderful thing was I was able to do that in a part-time capacity while my little girl continued to grow up.
Oh, that's
and it
lovely.
worked. It worked really well. So that's the role that we created. And I became what Michael described as the acceptable face of Birmingham Assay Office. That was quite interesting. And I started going out and seeing the customers that were using the services of Birmingham Assay Office to make sure that we were looking after them in the way that they expected. And it was great. The customers really appreciated that all of a sudden now they had an account manager.
Yeah, and a face.
Acceptable face.
And I suppose at that time, the Assay Office as well was a very different beast. So this was when it became customer service focused and not the traditional. Everyone had a very traditional view of what an Assay Office was.
Definitely.
And your role definitely would have been to bring it up to date, let's say. I'm trying to be very diplomatic.
Yes.
It's not my skill.
Yeah. So, absolutely. It was absolutely that. the reality is that there are 4 assay offices, so we couldn't become too complacent about retaining our customers without ensuring that we gave them great service.
Yeah.
So that was what the role was about. My relationships were not just with external customers, but also internally, to ensure that everything we did was to give our customers the very best possible service.
Okay.
So the role developed. But then I started to realise that when I was sitting with a customer, an existing customer, there was an opportunity to cross-sell what else we could do for that customer.
So at this particular time in the world of the Assay Office, it had now developed as a business and was not just tool marking.
Exactly.
So it had got other divisions of evaluations. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Analytical services, the Gem Lab. So all of these were now in existence.
Very much
so. You've got all these additional services as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Which I could actually sit in front of a customer and talk about.
Right.
So hallmarking at that point was still very much the key activity. Mm-hmm. But those additional services were now becoming really important to the development and expansion of the Assay Office.
Right.
So I would be sitting with a customer talking about their hallmarking account and then discuss what about their valuations, or would they like their diamonds certified, or if they were selling costume jewellery, did they require us to carry out reach testing for them? So I was starting to cross-sell, essentially.
Right, okay.
And I never saw myself as a salesperson. What I saw myself as is a relationship builder, and it naturally developed into business development.
Right, okay.
So the role continued to evolve, and I became essentially a business development manager. And then again, it continued to develop. I've embraced all of the opportunities that we've had within the Assay Office to change the way we do things, and to continue to make sure that we're giving our customers not just the best possible service, but the breadth of services that we know that the jewellery industry needs. So essentially, my role today at the Assay Office is commercial manager. I pretty much know our customer base inside and out across the whole business,
right?
From the hallmarking division to the analytical space, to the valuations that we undertake for retailers, for jewellery and watch valuations, and then, of course, for the customers that are using our diamond and gemstone laboratory as well.
Wow.
So
you are a memory bank.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's, for me, what I've worked with you for a long time, it's your knowledge. Actually, you're quite exceptional and unique in the amount of knowledge you've got about the industry, because, as you said, you know this entire customer database, which is the majority of the industry.
Yes.
But the knowledge that you know about not just hallmarking, but the analytics, understanding nickel release, lead in jewellery, the valuations, how that works. It's really a substantial amount of knowledge, and that I don't think anybody else could possibly have, because you've done this for such a long time.
Yeah.
But gain that knowledge, and to be able to, one of the things I love about when we have interacted before and we've done live shows and things like that, is that you're able to put it into layman's terms.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes, especially with the metal analysis, when you meet the technical people, it's very difficult to understand, to put it in layman's terms and get that across to a customer. And I think that's really one of your massive skill, isn't it, that you've got to be able to do that and make people understand the importance of what's going on with these legislations and all that knowledge that you've acquired over 40 years, Marie.
It's a long time. It scares me when we say that number, but yeah, you do develop knowledge over that period of time, and it hasn't all come overnight.
No,
it's taken 40 years to build up that knowledge. But I do believe, Marie, that it's really important to keep it simple. We can overcomplicate things, but actually, at the end of the day, the customers who are using, for example, using the analytical lab, they just need to understand what is required of them as a business to ensure that their products are safe. So hallmarking, as we know, is all about making sure that the purity of the metal is what it should be, and applying a hallmark to guarantee the purity. to protect the consumer. Within the analytical laboratory, it's all about making sure that products that are placed on the market are, particularly with costume jewellery, are safe. So when we talk about safe, we mean things like nickel, lead and cadmium that you've already talked about are commonly used in jewellery, but can have adverse reactions to an individual's health if they exceed certain limits. So the businesses that are selling products in that space need to ensure that those items are tested and are compliant with regulations that are called the REACH regulations. So when I'm talking to customers that are coming into the business that need to understand what their obligations are, I just try and keep it simple and not overcomplicate it.
And I think that's really useful to a customer. That's what they want, isn't it? We need to understand what you need to do to make sure you're safe and to, I'm sure, to protect your customers. You don't want to be selling something that's not compliant with the regulations and it's dangerous to the consumer. That's definitely, none of us want that.
No.
So what were the highlights? Oh, you've missed a child out, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
There's another child in there somewhere.
There is indeed. Thank you for that reminder, Marie. So in 2003, I joined the Assay Office, and then I thought, okay, one more child. And in 2006, I had my little boy, James, who's now 20. And I took a very short time off to have James, I think 2 or 3 months, and I was back at it. Yeah. God, there've been so many highlights. Honestly, right back to the beginning, that centenary banquet is definitely a highlight.
Yeah.
It was the start of, 40 years. But so many highlights down through the years that there are too many. It's impossible to think.
Yeah. You're going to go home tonight and think of all the answers you could have given me. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, some great events. We've attended lots of events, things like the UK Jewellery Awards. We were delighted to receive the Supplier of the Year award 2 years ago. That was a highlight,
And you celebrated last year 250 years of Birmingham Assay Office, which is just incredible, isn't it?
That was definitely a highlight. When I think about them, there are lots.
I bet there's loads.
But in 2023, so it's coming up on 3 years ago, we celebrated 250 years of Birmingham Assay Office.
Right.
So that was a year long of celebrations, and so proud to be here at Birmingham Assay Office to celebrate such an important milestone. I couldn't be prouder, really. It's just a brilliant industry to be in.
It really is.
And I didn't, like I said at the beginning,
I didn't mean to
land.
I don't think you can generally get out. I think over the years, we've seen a few people who've tried to escape the jewellery industry, but they just bounce right back.
That's
don't they? It's not an option to
What
leave.
was I thinking?
Exactly.
What was I thinking to think there was a world outside?
Grass was greener, but it's not.
Exactly.
It's really good.
And I think this industry is typical of that. We've got, when you look at the businesses here in this industry, there are so many people that have served for so many years.
I think that says a lot, don't you think?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think it's the sense of community that when I think, why do I love the jewellery industry? We feel like a community. We support each other. Everybody kind of works together. It's built on trust, of course, because of the nature of what we do. But the network and the community that we are as a body makes you feel secure and supported in your day-to-day work, and
definitely,
and significant, really. And I think that that's quite unique and very special about our industry.
Very much so. Very much so. It is. I think it's an exceptionally special industry. When I think about the people here at Birmingham Assay Office, my colleagues, there are so many of my colleagues that have served in excess of 35, 40 years. It's just wonderful to see that commitment to the industry. You walk, it's not very often that I leave the building in the middle of the day, but occasionally I'm going to go up the road and buy a sandwich or nipping out to see a customer. I walk up that hill towards the clock tower, and it's actually sometimes impossible to get as far as the clock tower because you bump into people along the way that I've known for 40 years,
And a jewellery quarter is very much, again, I mean, I always say it's a village within a city. It's so unique, the jewellery quarter.
Yeah.
But yes, the fact that you can be having a bad day and you wander up the street and you see 5 people who generally care about you and you about them.
Yeah.
You know, what a fabulous place to work and a fabulous community to be part of.
Oh, it really is. Honestly, I think you've described it very well there. It is a village almost in the city.
Yeah, and quite unique.
Very unique.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the creativity and the skills and the craftsmanship that exists in this industry, and particularly here in the Birmingham Jewellery Quarter, is something that's unique.
Yeah.
You know, to be granted with World Craft City status last year
Phenomenal.
was something that I think, you know, the jewellery industry should be extremely proud of.
So proud. Absolutely incredible status to get. And when you look at the very few people who actually have been granted that, it's, you know, what an achievement.
Yeah.
What an achievement. It'd be great to see what they're going to do with that next.
Oh,
We'll podcast then.
Oh, definitely. That has got to be a one for the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of questions from all of that, if that's okay.
Okay.
So 40 years, you must have seen some amazing changes. Really, that's a period of history. I don't mean to make you sound old, but that is a period of history. So what sort of changes have you seen?
Oh, wow. Lots and lots of changes. You know, when I think about when I started in the jewellery industry in 1986, there were some really big manufacturers in the Birmingham Jewellery Quarter. Let's take G&A Gallery and Abbeycrest as an example. They employed around 300 people in their factory there at the Clock Tower. I remember going to see G&A as one of our big customers at the Assay Office at that time. So we've seen changes where some of that manufacturing has gone offshore. We've seen huge changes in the volume of items that come in for hallmarking. An example, when I started in 2003 at the Birmingham Assay Office, the hallmarking volumes had hit an all-time high across all 4 assay offices of 35 million pieces.
Blimey.
That was the year I started.
Goodness me.
So,
And now?
and now, 23 years on, we're talking about 8 million items, 9 million items. So there's another significant change. And there have been changes to technology and advancements in technology, which are great for the industry.
I think we're going to have questions about that. Why 30 million down to 8 million? And that, in my opinion, it'd be interesting to know your opinion, is due to mostly competition from the world changing. I think a lot of people, whereas you were saying your mother took you out and bought a ring for your 13th birthday, people today want a piece of technology, the latest telephone, something totally different, and changes within the way that society is and the changes in society have led to a loss in the jewellery trade of a lot of items being purchased. What other sort of factors do you think influence that drop?
I think precious metal prices plays a part to play in that as well. You know, the cost of that 9-carat gold piece of jewellery now versus 23 years ago, there is a significant increase.
A significant increase, I'm sure.
Yeah. We've also got some nice costume jewellery brands on the market. So people don't necessarily always want to buy precious metal.
Yeah, we're in fast fashion now. So
exactly.
They want the outfit to go, the jewellery to go with that particular outfit.
Absolutely, which might be a lower cost piece.
Yeah.
And then, like you've said, there's competition in terms of what consumers are going to spend their disposable income on. So I think there's a multiple of, number of different factors that has driven that hallmarking volume to where it is today. But what it does mean is that we're not seeing the volume. Therefore, we've got to be more agile. We've got to be smarter and quicker and more efficient at what we do, because retailers don't necessarily want to hold huge volumes of stock. So as product lands with us for hallmarking, it's key that we turn it round as quickly as possible. And that's what we've been really focused on here at the Assay Office for some time.
I think that's really important. Yeah, that it is about service. And when I travel internationally, you see people manufacturing and shipping out in a day, and it's that fast.
Yeah.
And so to get it into an Assay Office, have it turned around straight away. And what do you think the future will look like? Especially, I mean, the metal price is very topical, but at the moment the metal price is particularly high. Do you think that's going to have an impact?
Yeah, I think it will. If it continues to increase, who knows what's going to happen? You know, there are so many factors that can drive precious metal prices, not least of which is the economic landscape, as it were. So who knows what the future holds? We've got AI coming, so I'm sure there'll be as many changes in the future that I've seen in the last 40 years during my time here within the jewellery industry.
And so you're, of course, optimistic.
Yes, forever.
Definitely. I feel quite optimistic about the future of the industry. And I think it could be a time where lots of people are feeling very nervous. Yeah. But I look for the positive stories, hence the fact behind the jewellery is about positive stories. And I see so much positivity and people future-proofing our industry and new technologies coming out. And that excites me. And I think there is a massive amount of progression for the jewelry industry coming, and it's going to be an amazing place to work, hopefully for another 40 years.
Yeah, definitely. And it's great to see that there are young people coming into this industry that are attracted to it. We organise a careers event here at the Assay Office every March. That's just growing in popularity, which is great to see young people wanting to pursue a career in the jewellery industry. And it's great that we here at the Assay Office can help host and raise the profile of the sector to the future lifeblood of our industry.
Amazing. Right, one last question then. So we touched on networking, which, that you are the queen of networking. So do you have any tips for people who are networking?
Right. That's a very good question, Marie.
I think it's quite difficult at the moment because the generations coming in are not quite as confident face to face. I have 2 teenagers and you have some young people as well. And I think that they find it much more challenging actually to do anything face to face because they live in a world of technology.
Yeah.
So networking, I think, is what has really built my career.
Yes.
That's how important it is.
Yeah.
So, any tips you got for those guys?
Yeah, what I would say is just go for it. We have a lot of industry events that I've attended. I don't know how many over the years, like 300. If I think about the number of spring fairs that I've attended, I just don't even want to. But what my mantra has always been that if I go into a room with a whole load of people that I don't know, for example, I just literally walk up to people and start chatting, introduce myself. You've got to just, you've got to go for it.
Yeah.
You've got to just build that confidence. It's not always easy, but it's the only way to build the relationships that you need to. I don't think there's any quick fix.
No.
You've just got to have some confidence, look smart, and just chat to people and be yourself.
Absolutely agree with you. I think that it's mostly in your head, the fear. But actually, if you're in an environment that's built for networking, everybody's waiting to network.
Yes.
So the fear is in your mind and they're happy to meet you generally. And I mean, I used to do cold calling for a living. I don't know if you've touched on cold calling.
No, I haven't.
And so I loved cold calling because I love the element of surprise. And I find it incredible how rude some people can be. And some of the people I cold called came to my wedding.
Oh,
so you get a total polar. But I think you've just got to get over the fear. You've got to walk in. And what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
They just say, oh, hi, and then turn around and talk to somebody else. You've got to just, I'm with you. Be confident.
Be confident.
Go in.
Sometimes it won't always work the way you want it to.
That's true.
but just have that confidence to go and chat to people. We're all human, and it's just be yourself.
Yeah,
and do it with ease.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, so all of our podcasts, we're going to ask everybody the same question. So here's the question. If you had an unlimited amount of money, it was of no consequence, in the world of jewellery, so jewellery, watches, gemstones, past or present, what would you buy and why?
Right. Oh, gosh.
It's one of those.
question.
I feel like lots of people have the one that got away, but you're not a trader, you see. So I don't know. I can't think what you can say. I'm quite pleased.
What I would do, I think, is I would sit with a talented designer and create something very bespoke.
For you to wear?
For me to wear.
Exciting.
So it would have to feature my birthstone, which is an emerald.
Nice.
What that would look like, I don't know. But I would love to utilise the design skills and the craftsmanship that exists within this industry to create something very bespoke for me.
Well, I have an incredible answer.
And I think I'd also like to incorporate within that the birthstones of those three special people in my life: my husband, my daughter, and my son. So I'm thinking 4 gemstones.
Yeah, 4 gemstones.
Platinum would be beautiful. I love white metal.
Right.
But yeah, something very unique and bespoke.
It's very strange because when we work as we do in the secure buildings that we work in, we don't wear jewellery.
No.
And you get out. I personally really got out of the habit of wearing jewellery because you have to take it all off to come to work.
That's right.
And I saw you in a social situation. I think last summer there was a party in the jewellery quarter and you had loads of jewellery on. And I'm like, this is amazing. Because you just... Well, how sad though that we can't actually show off what we work with. But so what a lovely thing to add to your jewellery collection. Do you have a big collection?
Not really, Marie. I'm not particularly an ostentatious sort of person.
No.
I've got some nice pieces. You could argue that I should be a greater ambassador for the jewellery.
That's how I always feel. It's a good excuse to buy diamonds in my mind.
Well, absolutely. But I've got 1 or 2 nice pieces, all of which are hallmarked, which is
very special.
That's very, very important.
So if you had your piece of jewellery designed, are you going to put the hallmark as a feature?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Definitely. I remember... I'm going to take you back to when I was 13, just very quickly. I've got a twin sister. I think you're aware of this. Yeah. Her name is Sarah. And on our 13th birthday, my mother said to us, we're going to go to the Birmingham Jewellery Quarter and I'm going to buy you each a gold signet ring.
Right.
We were very excited. We got on the bus with my mother and we came to the Birmingham Jewellery Quarter. And when we selected our signet rings in the store, which I can't remember the name of it, but it was on Vise Street, my mother said, let's look for the little hallmarks because that's going to tell us that the item is real gold. That's how she probably articulated it. She wouldn't have incorporated the fact that hallmark had been applied by an assay office.
No.
But anyway, we got the picture and we looked for the tiny hallmarks. And with good eyesight, I think we probably identified the mark or saw the hallmark on the items. I would love on this bespoke piece of jewellery that we're talking about to have a beautiful feature hallmark that I can see. But I do go back to that story quite often because that was my first introduction to a hallmark.
And how important. 13.
And I was 13. So it was a fair number of years ago. And little did I know that my career of 40 years would be spent in the Birmingham Jewellery Quarter and latterly in the last 23 years looking at hallmarks and talking about how important those hallmarks are to protect our consumers here in the UK.
Well, thank you so much, Marie, for coming. It's been an absolute privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Marie. Really appreciate it.
If you would like to nominate someone to share their career journey with us, then drop an email to info@charmersgems.com.